Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into The 7 Secrets of Really Great Sex by Graham Masterton.
Right.
You sent this one over, and it seems like you're looking to, understand intimacy a bit deeper, beyond just the basics.
Definitely. And our goal here is to pull out those core insights, maybe some surprising bits too, from the book. There are a lot of anecdotes and advice packed in here.
Sounds good. And knowing you like things straightforward, we'll try to nail those aha moments, the practical stuff you can actually think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Focus on the key takeaways from these secrets
Mm.
and the story shared.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The book kicks off talking about something pretty big, this pressure around normal sex,
Uh-huh.
how media or maybe bad early experiences can make people feel, well, inadequate.
Yeah, it sets up this unrealistic picture, doesn't it? And the book uses some pretty raw examples to show that.
Like Debbie's story,
Yeah.
trying to copy movie sex.
Exactly. And her partner just shut her down, which then silenced her later on. It wasn't just awkward, it really affected her.
Yeah, it's quite sad, actually, how she ended up totally passive with Richard, just scared to ask for anything.
Afraid of rocking the boat.
Right. And she even said she felt like a piece of meat. That phrase really hits home, the lack of connection there.
Total lack of communication, really. And then there's that really disturbing part about Richard's actions while she was asleep.
Oh, yeah. That was difficult to read.
It's a stark example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows exactly what happens when there's zero respect or communication. Consent is just non-negotiable.
Absolutely. And looking at these negative examples like the book does, it helps you see what not to do, what healthy connection actually looks like.
They're not just shock stories. They show common pitfalls.
True. Which kind of leads into the next point, doesn't it? About women taking charge.
Right. The book really pushes for women to, well, own their experiences more and not blame themselves when things go wrong in a relationship.
The example with Brad, the guy who always pulled out before finishing.
Yeah, that's a pretty common frustration, I imagine. It might point to, his own issues or maybe learned behaviors, perhaps even from things like porn, focusing on his end goal over mutual pleasure.
So what does the book suggest? Just talk about it.
Well, yes, communication is key, but it also offers some pretty proactive techniques, like physically taking control.
How so?
Simple things like rolling him over or using her hands to prevent withdrawal, ensuring ejaculation happens inside. It's about empowerment.
Shifting the dynamic.
Exactly. Moving from feeling passive to actively shaping the experience.
Yeah.
And then afterwards,
Positive reinforcement.
yeah, a compliment about her satisfaction. It subtly guides him towards what feels good for both.
That makes sense. It reframes it from helplessness to influence. It gives you those aha moments we talked about.
Definitely. It's a more proactive approach.
Okay, so moving on. Communication about fantasies. The book really hammers this point home.
Oh, absolutely. It says open, honest talk about desires, especially fantasies, is crucial for really great sex.
Rhoda's story seemed quite powerful there.
It really was. Wanting to try wet sex, feeling ashamed, but then initiating it with her husband, Mel.
And feeling liberated afterward.
Totally liberated, free from that guilt. It shows the power of just asking for what you want, overcoming those internal blocks.
And Georgina, with the pantyless fantasy from Greg, her initial reaction was surprise, right?
a little taken aback, maybe, but then she thought, actually, that's pretty sexy. And she even surprised him with it later.
That openness is quite refreshing, I guess.
It really drives home the book's idea of having a sexually receptive frame of mind.
Being non-judgmental.
Yeah, even if a fantasy sounds, I don't know, filthy or just weird at first. It's just a thought, isn't it, in the mind?
Exactly. And sharing these specific, maybe slightly surprising stories helps show the sheer range of desires out there.
And how talking about them can bring people closer.
So we've talked about communicating outwardly, but then the book looks inwardly, right? At the barriers women might face inside themselves.
Yes, the internal stuff. What it calls thinking sexy. This is a big one.
Janet's story about her weight really stood out. Feeling bad, dieting, then comfort eating. That cycle.
It's very relatable for many, I'd imagine. But then you have Astrid's point.
That some women just exude sex, regardless of looks.
Exactly. It points to an internal vibe, a confidence. Attractiveness isn't just a physical package.
It's how you feel about yourself.
Right. And Sybil's journey with oral sex fits here, too.
She was initially repulsed by it.
Totally. But the book's message about consent, about her right to say no, actually empowered her. She explored it on her own terms with Rick and found pleasure.
That's a fascinating turnaround.
It is. And then there's Jean's childhood story. asking about anal sex and her mom's awful reaction.
Shows how early experiences can stick with you, creating inhibitions, bad information, basically.
Definitely. And we also heard about Rosa.
Oh, wetting herself during sex and being embarrassed.
Yeah, but then learning it's common helped her relax. And Wendy's damaging first experience, the long-term hit to her self-esteem,
So the core message here is,
that sexual attractiveness is fundamentally internal. Nurturing your own sexuality, letting it develop, actually enhances how you appear.
yeah.
It's about feeling sexy inside.
So understanding these psychological bits can help overcome those internal hurdles.
Precisely. Which leads nicely into the more practical side.
Yeah.
How to actually do that.
Letting yourself be sexy. The actionable stuff.
Yeah, the book gets really concrete here. The 57 Ways to Have Really Great Sex section is full of ideas.
Some conventional, some.
Less so. Definitely a mix. Erotic earrings, massage oils, sure. But then like a bridal outfit with nothing underneath. Or a latex mask to lose inhibitions.
Right. Little things to break routine, add playfulness.
And more subtle things too. Anna wearing thongs under her work clothes. A private confidence booster.
Or Melissa using her tongue piercing for empowerment.
Yeah, Melissa's story is great. Shows attraction isn't just about classic beauty, it's about owning it. Confidence.
The book also mentions meditative analysis. What's that about?
It's basically dedicated time for self-reflection. Gentle self-stimulation, getting to know your own body, your responses, desires.
Deepening that connection with your own sensuality.
Exactly. Which then feeds into partnered sex. And it talks about mantras too.
Like positive affirmations.
Kind of. Inspired by Emile Coué every day, in every way. But making your own sexual mantra. Building self-assurance. Tackling anxieties with positive self-talk.
That woman who combined everything, meditation, piercings, tattoo, no panties, her transformation sounded huge.
It was. But the key wasn't just the external stuff. It was the internal shift. She said she started valuing myself. That changed everything with Paul.
Feeling good about yourself sexually radiates outwards.
That's the idea, giving listeners tangible ways to cultivate that confidence.
Okay, what about teasing time? Building anticipation.
Ah, yes. Crucial according to the book, keeping things exciting.
Charlene's story with her boss, initiating oral sex in unexpected places. A bit risky, maybe, but illustrates the point.
It definitely highlights the thrill of the unexpected, breaking the mold.
And Rita, under the desk during a meeting. Wow, that's certainly breaking routine.
Uh-huh, yeah. The core message is shake things up. Prioritize sex sometimes. Try things you haven't considered. Inject spontaneity.
The book also pushes back against the idea of oral sex being degrading.
Right, it flips it, saying it can actually give the woman a lot of control over his pleasure. Fine-tuning things.
And again, suggesting mantras if you have reservations about it. Mindset is key.
And accepting erotic gifts, like lingerie. Seeing it as affirmation, not criticism.
Which brings us neatly to dress to thrill,
Yeah.
clothes and presentation.
Yeah, how what we wear affects how we feel sexually and how our partner sees us.
It mentions that men and women often have different ideas about erotic clothes.
Generally, yeah. Men often respond to more visually overt stuff,
Yeah.
maybe seen as whorish by some. Women might feel sexier in things that feel soft, comfortable, good on them.
Lydia's reaction to the underwear Ted bought her. She felt inadequate.
Exactly, that disconnect. But the book explains the male view. It's often about adding visual spice, bringing fantasies to life, not saying you're not hot already,
Enhancement, not criticism.
supposedly. And that story about the guy whose wife rejected the open crotch panties years ago, how it still stings, shows how deep these things can go.
Yeah, rejection hurts. The book suggests looking at men's magazines for clues.
Right. Seeing how even mostly nude models are often styled with stockings, garters, shoes. It sends a specific message. Dressed up for sex.
Like that woman who wore stockings for Frank. And it empowered both of them.
Yes. She ended up demanding oral sex first. It shifted the whole dynamic.
The book also gets into body image after big changes like childbirth. Gemma feeling self-conscious about her breasts.
Uh-huh. And it gives ideas on how she could have handled Nolan's attention differently, made herself feel desired and comfortable.
It also touches on why men might find pregnant women attractive, but also the frustrations after birth, the shift in focus.
It's complex. Gemma's experiment is going topless around the house to get Nolan's attention back.
And it worked. Led to passionate sex, reconnected them. Sometimes direct action helps.
And Kylie dealing with Jim's stress-induced low libido, her initiating affection rebuilt his confidence.
And led to them trying anal sex for the first time even. Emotional connection fueling physical exploration.
Then there's Helen and Paul's weekend routine, revitalized, just by her walking around naked one morning. Simple but effective.
And Barbara, initially shy about Brad seeing her naked due to body image issues.
But he loved her body anyway. That acceptance is huge. We're often our own worst critics.
Carrie's story, too, regaining confidence after a bad relationship, embracing her sexuality with new people.
It really hammers home how much believing in your own attractiveness matters. So yeah, dressing sexy is multifaceted.
Okay, last secret. Devote yourself to his delight, and vice versa. Mutual generosity.
The two-way street idea. Great sex is about giving and receiving pleasure.
It mentions women sometimes hesitate to initiate or be adventurous, fear of judgment.
Yeah, that fear can be a real block.
Yeah.
But Lillian's story about trying anal sex.
She was scared at first.
Very. But with communication, lubricant, she found it mutually enjoyable. And again, the liberation of wet sex comes up, encouraging exploration without shame.
The book suggests making a pros and cons list about your sex life.
Yeah, and thinking honestly about how far you'd go to excite your partner while respecting your own limits. It's about conscious choice.
What about that porn video list? Seemed a bit unusual.
Its purpose isn't necessarily to watch them, but more as a self-check. How open are you to different ideas? What pushes your buttons, positively or negatively?
A self-assessment tool.
Exactly. And talking about fantasies, even if it feels awkward initially, can really deepen closeness. Men might be embarrassed about their interests, like porn.
Like Pat finding Stanley's videos.
Right, but instead of judging, she watched with him, tried to understand. It led to better, more varied sex, and she even explored oral sex more. Curiosity over condemnation.
Makes sense. The book also reminds about safe sex, like condoms for oral with new partners.
Practical stuff. Even mentions flavored ones if taste is an issue.
And location, timing mattering for oral sex, Lorraine in the hospital, Trudy in the garage.
Yeah. Unexpected moments, breaking routine again, making things memorable.
It mentions techniques like around the world and anal penetration for strong sensations, prostate massage.
It explores different avenues for pleasure, yeah. And Fiona using a strap-on with Alan.
She was nervous.
Initially, but he reacted positively. It highlights playfulness, a sense of shared mischief being important.
Like Delia's tease and chase game with Vincent outdoors, fun-enhancing excitement.
Compared to her more serious affair, yeah, lightness matters.
What about dealing with a partner who rushes?
The book offers ideas. Distraction, the squeeze technique, using a vibrator.
Emphasizing the vibrator as a mutual tool.
Right, not just for one person. Jody and Kieran's story shows how it can become part of partnered sex, even when tired.
And bondage. How does that fit the mutual delight idea?
It frames it as a way to playfully take control by demanding your partner gets creative, focusing entirely on your pleasure, but with safety and clear signals paramount.
Makes sense. Marcia and Len's spontaneous outdoor sex, sparked by just grabbing towels.
Shows how easily routine can be broken, passion reignited, like Helen and Steve walking around naked unexpectedly.
And it loops back to body image with Barbara and Brad, your partner loves you.
A really important reassurance.
Yeah.
In Cabrera, overcoming insecurity. Belief in yourself is powerful.
So the 57 ways are just idea starters.
Basically, a toolkit for experimentation, breaking ruts, encouraging listeners to maybe try one or two things that resonate.
So wrapping this all up, what we've explored from the 7 secrets of really great sex suggests that, well, great sex isn't a formula.
Not at all. It seems to be much more about open communication, embracing desires, yours and your partner's, even the weird ones.
And being willing to experiment, right? Taking control sometimes.
Yeah, and fundamentally overcoming those internal inhibitions and feeling confident in your own skin, sexually speaking. That seems key.
Right. So thinking about all these different stories and suggestions, here's the thought for our listeners. What's one assumption you might have about sex, maybe your own, or just generally that listening to this deep dive has made you question?
Ooh, good one.
Maybe exploring that question is the next step in your own journey.